D&D, the world's greatest role-playing game. I've been playing for years now, and nothing gets me more excited than making a badass character or monster. And video games and anime provide the perfect inspiration for this. I mean, look at this stuff. But then you look at the game, and what you get is something like 4 Elements Monk?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Seriously, what am I even supposed to do with this? 4 key points for Burning Hands? Come on!
We'll have to make some major changes around here.
Welcome to the table. My name is Ian, and this is Incendium D&D. Today, we're gonna hack Dungeons and Dragons. Item number: SCP-1048. Object class: Keter, formerly safe. SCP-1048 is currently free to roam Site-24, as it poses no threat and has been observed to greatly improve the morale of personnel that interact with it. The previous line was stricken from the document. The whereabouts of SCP-1048 are currently unknown, though it is still believed to be somewhere in Site-24. Subject is to be secured for containment, but any creation of SCP-1048s should be destroyed on site, unless further evidence warrants less extreme actions. No teddy bears are to be allowed in Site-24 to prevent any confusion or mistaken identity. Any object that resembles a teddy bear is to be reported to the security team immediately.
This is not a joke. We have no idea what SCP-1048's full capabilities are. Who knows how many of those damn things are out there by now?
Dr. Carver. Hello everyone. Welcome back to D&D Hacks, our homebrew series on Incendium D&D. Last time we created a stat block for SCP-966, the Sleep Killer, to use at our table. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It's definitely more powerful than you'd expect. For those of you who are new to the SCP universe in general, here's what you missed. If you're already familiar with it, skip to the timestamp on the screen now, or click it in the description below. Dating back to 2007, the Creative Commons universe of the SCP Foundation catalogs a multitude of monsters, items, and phenomena which pose variable threats to human society. These anomalous objects are designated as SCPs, and given a number which represents the order in which they were found. They can range from dangerous to adorable, and are classified in terms of difficulty to contain. Their powers range from distorting reality to indestructibility to being the literal embodiment of happiness. And the secret global organization, only known as the Foundation, has taken up the daunting task of protecting our world from them by any means necessary. Think Illuminati, but modern and scientific, rather than mystic and arcane. Thousands of tragedies have been stopped thanks to their hard work, but as more and more SCPs are discovered, end-of-the-world scenarios are never far off. Dungeons & Dragons is a TTRPG in which you can do anything. You work alongside your players to design a game for everyone to enjoy. And as the DM, you get to make the decisions on what kind of monsters, NPCs, or gods appear in your world. SCPs make for some amazing inspiration. Generally, they fit best in the context of horror or mystery, but they can be comedic or tragic as well. Their sheer anomalousness leaves room for a whole new world of storytelling at the table. A statue that breaks your neck in the blink of an eye. An old man with a pocket dimension of mazes and death traps. A hard-to-destroy reptile made of hatred incarnate. With a roster like this, it can be difficult to bring faithful adaptations from the SCP universe into our campaigns. But all that ends today, because we're going to be converting another SCP into a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons monster. Roll the footage. Oh hey, how are you doing? How's it going, little guy? You doing okay? You alright? Okay, well I'll catch you later, I guess. I gotta figure out how to get through this gate here. You wouldn't happen to... Oh. SCP-1048 is a sapient teddy bear nearly 33 centimeters in height. It was discovered on the premises of Site-24 and taken under observation by Dr. Carver, Its composition and features make it identical to any mundane teddy bear, and originally its disposition towards research staff was amicable, even benevolent. It communicates primarily through a small range of gestures, including but not limited to dancing, hugging, jumping in place, and even childlike drawings. However, all attempts at discerning its origin or nature have been met with no response from SCP-1048. Because of this, researchers allowed the teddy bear to roam freely in Site-24. This false sense of security would last for 7 months. On a redacted date, a copy of SCP-1048 was discovered roaming the site, referred to in this video as SCP-1048-A or 1048-A for short. This subject resembled SCP-1048 in size and shape, but was composed entirely out of human ears. It was in the company of SCP-1048, as though the plush teddy bear were giving it a tour of Site-24. And upon coming in contact with a security dispatch, 1048-A let out a high-pitched shriek which caused intense pain to those nearby. Ear-like growths immediately began to grow on those closest to the subject, rapidly covering their entire bodies. The afflicted died within 3 minutes, the cause of which was later revealed to be asphyxiation due to the ear-like growths inside their lungs. SCP-1048 and SCP-1048-A left the scene and have not been contained since then. One member of the research staff was later found to be missing an ear. On another date, a second copy of SCP-1048 was discovered in the site cafeteria, this time nearly identical to the teddy bear, which will be referred to as SCP-1048-B or 1048-B. Its limbs moved jerkily as it walked along the floor, as though something were moving around inside the bear. Needless to say, it did not hold benevolent intentions. Those who encountered it, well, they didn't make it out so well, and it is implied that 1048-B was neutralized. I will refrain from describing this one in detail to avoid YouTube censorship, and we won't be including this in the final stat block, but if you're looking for something sincerely disturbing, I recommend checking out the SCP Wiki article for yourself. A third copy of SCP-1048 was discovered shortly after. This one was composed entirely of broken metal and rusted parts, hence referred to as SCP-1048-C or 1048-C for short. It was cited by Dr. Carver in his office, and during an attempt to contain it, the teddy bear displayed extremely violent tendencies, grievously harming and killing multiple Foundation staff members during its escape. So what does all this mean for our stat block? It's clear that SCP-1048 has some considerably malevolent tendencies, and it seems to have the ability to create copies of itself with the available materials, quote-unquote. Its ability to deceive people into believing it is harmless makes it easy to underestimate on a first encounter. And although it is currently uncontained, we're not dealing with the average research staff at our D&D table. The party members will have plenty going for them to corner and neutralize this enemy. So with all that in mind, let's take a crack at it. Before we get into it though, let me know what other SCPs I should make in D&D. We're currently working on Series 1 and 2 right now, and I am taking all suggestions into consideration. The only caveat is that it needs to be able to be neutralized, that is, contained or killed. Many SCPs are catastrophic in nature, and I'm not trying to make any Tiamat level creatures right now. With that being said, let's get back into it. There are basically 2 ways that we can make SCP-1048 into a monster for D&D. One way is to create a series of stat blocks, each of which denote a special ability of its copies. This is how the 5th edition Monster Manual usually handles things, where there are multiple variations on the same creature. Take the Slod, for example. The second way is to keep everything combined in the same stat block without overcomplicating things. Lately, the trend in D&D has been to make things more efficient and precise, so we may want to future-proof this monster, as my co-creator John often says. SCP-1048 is going to be a small aberration with a challenge rating of 9. Unlike other SCPs we've worked with, we'll be relying heavily on the guidelines for monster creation in the Dungeon Master's Guide for this. As a small creature, we'll set its HP to 90 and give it a speed of 30. For its primary stats, we're going to highlight Dexterity and Charisma, with a dump stat in Intelligence. Although SCP-1048 is smarter than it lets on, the mechanics of D&D don't really fit with the lore here. Consider, for example, that it was able to deceive the Foundation staff members for so long before showing its true colors. We'll add its proficiency to strength and charisma saving throws, and give it a skill in deception, intimidation, perception, and stealth. This will help it seem benevolent or unnerving at its discretion, and allow it to slip away unnoticed. For resistances, I feel that Thunder and Psychic are appropriate. Thunder tends to work best against hard constructs. For immunities, I chose Necrotic and Poison, since 1048 doesn't have any flesh or circulatory systems. In line with this nature, it cannot be charmed, frightened, poisoned, or polymorphed. It is the one that makes and transforms things, no one else here. Lastly, I gave it a vulnerability to acid as a counter to the materials it's composed of. Even though it's malicious, this teddy bear is made of cotton, string, and fabric, so it makes sense that acid would have a harmful effect on it, as well as fire and other things, but I don't want to go overboard with the vulnerabilities here. Finally, it'll have dark vision, and it's able to understand all languages, but is unable to speak them. Now it's time to get into the fun stuff, and the things that took me the longest to figure out. For its traits, it'll only be able to communicate with basic gestures, as seen in the wiki article. It has a charming appearance, which forces it to appear friendly to all creatures until it becomes hostile and enters combat. This is similar to the false appearance trait of mimics, and we all know how exciting those can be. Build a clone. The SCP-1048 can use the available materials to create a clone of itself. These materials may be of the environment or from other creatures. It can choose base form, form A, or form C. In base form, this clone takes on the appearance of a plush teddy bear. In form A, this clone takes on the appearance of a plush teddy bear composed completely of body parts, such as humanoid ears. In form C, this clone takes on the appearance of a plush teddy bear composed completely of metal scraps. These forms do not change its ability scores or other statistics, and each clone takes 1 hour to make, and no more than 3 clones can be made per 24 hours. So we've got ourselves a sapient teddy bear, which can create alternate versions of itself as clones. As a model, I used the Summon Aberration spell from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Here, you can see that the aberration you summon can take on one of 3 forms, each of which has a unique ability and action to take. I really like how they did things in this book, even with the power creep, and I believe that the format will work just as well for a monster's stat block as for a spell. In regards to the materials, I intentionally kept it vague in order to allow the Dungeon Master to come up with their own versions of this creature. I also put a limiter on the amount of clones that SCP-1048 can create per day in order to keep it balanced, but it does have the added benefit of keeping the table uncluttered, which I prefer. Now, let's take a look at its actions. Each form has a unique action for their multi-attack. Its base form uses Deceptive Slam, a strength-based attack that deals minimal damage. However, it does more than the players may be expecting, as this small teddy bear can knock down any creature that is large or smaller off its feet, shoving them back 15 feet. This can be useful for disengaging and giving SCP-1048 time to reposition or escape. In Form A, it can make a ranged spell attack with highly dangerous side effects. This is where things really start to kick into overdrive. Dealing decent damage, Form A of SCP-1048 will force its target to make a DC 14 Constitution saving throw. If they fail, then ear-like growths will begin manifesting all over and inside the target's body, causing them to suffocate. This condition is more dangerous than it seems, for although a creature can hold its breath for an amount of minutes equal to 1 plus its Constitution modifier, with a minimum of 30 seconds, suffocating drops this down to a number of rounds equal to this modifier, minimum of 1 round. When it runs out of breath, it drops to 0 HP and is actively dying, and can't regain HP or be stabilized until it can breathe again. This puts it on par with exhaustion in my eyes, and because of that, we'll need to make sure that the party has options to help their comrade. The target can therefore repeat the saving throws to end the effect at the end of each of its turns, or the effect can end when SCP-1048 dies. Remove Curse or similar magic will also do the trick. I originally thought that Dispel Magic might also be an option here, but I do think that by not naming it in the stat block, people will be more inclined to use this underutilized spell. Lastly, Form C is probably the most offense-oriented form. Made of metal, it can make 2 attacks which simply deal a combination of 2d6 plus 4 slashing damage and 2d6 necrotic damage. Why necrotic damage? I just felt there should be something to reflect the tetanus you'll probably contract from all that rusted metal tearing through your insides. And that's it. Our homicidal Build-A-Bear is done. I imagine the encounter with this aberration going something like this. The party has heard of unnerving events in a nearby town. People have woken up to find objects missing, everyday tools, scrap metal, pots and pans. Some people have even been found amputated while they were asleep. Witnesses have reported small creatures running around at night, dragging bags behind them. Goblins? The party decides to investigate. They patrol the streets, keeping an eye out for suspicious activity. Suddenly, they stumble across a teddy bear, standing upright in the road. It waves to them, jumping up and down excitedly. They get closer, falling for its adoring appearance. If they're a social bunch, they may even talk to it, or try to play with it. They might let their guard down. If they're suspicious, or have a trigger-happy blaster for a comrade, they might attack it right away. Either way, it's far too late. SCP-1048 has been looking for more materials, and these adventurers will do just fine. This script took forever to write, and the stack block was not easy. This is a truly unique monster, and I wasn't able to find a decent creature to model it off of. Therefore, we had to refer to the Dungeon Master's Guide in order to create something that would resemble a balanced monster. SCPs are often horrifying, unkillable creatures with inexplicable abilities. Maintaining the balance of the game while keeping true to their nature and theme is an incredible challenge for any Dungeon Master. That's why most people just prefer to keep these worlds separate. But I think they can still serve as great inspiration for encounters, and as long as we combine their unique traits while weighing out the rest of the stat block, you and your party are guaranteed to have a great time against them. I hope you enjoyed my take on SCP-1048, the Build-A-Bear. Happy hunting, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.